Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our first of our Messiah workshops, the first of 5 workshops. Absolutely delighted to be welcoming you here this evening to join us in the Core Studio in Islington. A recent setup. We only, as some of you may know, we only started as a company at the beginning of March with the aim of providing a really lovely way to practice your parts with an app where you could hear your part sung by professional singers. And then COVID happened and the world around us changed, and one of the ways in which we thought as a company we could be supporting choirs during COVID, which clearly is going to go on for many, many months to come, although the vaccination news this week is very promising. So we thought that we could present some workshops online. I could bring together some of the fabulous singers I've been working with Core over the last few months to have basically open rehearsals and workshops on a few works. Now, what would Christmas be like if we didn't have a bit of Messiah in our Christmas? So hence, we're going for the next 5 weeks to explore the Messiah. If you have the score, we are using the Novello Watkins Shaw edition, so those will be the page numbers that I'll be referring to. I'll also try and throw out bar numbers wherever possible. If you don't have the score, head over to core.app excuse me, /music, or go to any one of the course pages and you'll see a link to where you can get the music, and you can download the good old standard Prout edition from Novello, which you can download as a PDF. If you don't have it and you don't want to order a score and you'd like to get it online, the company that we're recommending and we will be using for our Christmas workshop is Encoder, nkoda.com, and that's a subscription-based, it's basically the Spotify for sheet music. It's a wonderful new company as well. The details you should find underneath this video window, and you can link to that to get the music there. As I said, the practice tracks are available on Core. Core is free, so please do sign up and you'll be able to practice along. You'll be able to take some of these wonderful singers home with you in your pocket, basically. Being a new company, the app is only available as a web app at the moment, so you can access it on any device through a browser. We are working to have a downloadable app version that you can put onto your phones or mobile devices by the new year. So that's in the works and imminent, that development. And we'd like these sessions to be as interactive as possible. And we've chosen to do this on YouTube rather than Zoom because we can provide a better quality of video and audio for the workshops here. To chat with us, you do need to subscribe to our channel. Subscription is free, but you will have to have a YouTube account, but that's also free. So if you subscribe to YouTube, you can then subscribe to this channel, and that will give you access to the little chat window there. And do ask questions of our singers and make suggestions for how we can improve this. None of us ever thought that we would be doing online workshops until COVID came along. So we're all working this out, and you can help us make this better. We want to make this as the best possible experience we possibly can. And another way you can help us and talk with us about how to improve what we're doing is by joining our Facebook group. And there is a link to the Facebook group below this video window, and you can also find a link via our website. So if you join us there, it's an opportunity for you to share your thoughts about these workshops, continue to ask questions between the workshops. So next week, if you have any questions that arise during the week, post them on the Facebook page, and I'll ask our singers next week. And the last thing I'd mention about the Facebook group is that we're reaching out to choirs to find out from you, what are you planning to do over the next year? Let's assume we won't be able to get back to normal congregational rehearsals until next September. It's a horrible thought, I know, but how can we help in the next year to make we want to support you. We want to keep choirs enjoying coming together in some virtual form. So let us know what you're planning, and also let us know what your choir's thinking of doing from September of next year onwards, so that I and those of us at Core who plan the recording in 2021 can get the repertoire that you're planning to do next year recorded, so that we're ready to support you beyond COVID. Okay, let's move on I know a lot of you have not been singing in your choirs for many months now, and before we do that, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. I should introduce the wonderful singers who are sat behind me. So on my right, let me introduce our soprano, Amy Walsh. If you'd like to stand up, we probably can't see you from down there, but there we go. There's Emma Walsh, and Martha McLorinan is our mezzo-soprano. Jermey Budd, tenor.
Hiya.
Let's do Ian Tindale on piano. You want to stand up just so everybody can see you? You're quite far back. Yes, exactly. And Jonathan Brown, bass.
Hello.
Excellent. So let's get warmed up. And I'm going to ask Martha to step forward now and just do a nice little 10-minute warm-up and get those vocal cords ready for singing some Messiah. Over to you, Martha.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us. It's lovely to be back singing again, finally. One of the things we've just been talking about amongst ourselves is the fact that getting back to it after such a long time off has maybe made a difference to how we feel about our stamina. And particularly in a rehearsal like this evening's, where maybe we'll be concentrating on, how the piece goes and lots of technical issues. It's a good idea to remind ourselves that the best possible thing we can do to help with stamina is to make sure that we're really thinking about our body being our instrument. It's very easy to get very tired if you're thinking about other things and you're thinking about singing from the larynx level up. So in this warm-up, I want to really encourage you to do some really low breathing and to think about what you're doing with your entire body, because any bit of tension that you're holding or any sort of lopsided posture, it can all have an effect on your breathing and on the sound you're producing. So with that in mind, let's just have a bit of a posture check. So let's have your feet hip width apart if you're standing, and make sure that your weight is evenly distributed across both of those feet. If you're sitting, that's fine. Long rehearsal ahead of us, that's absolutely fine. Just make sure that your weight is evenly distributed across your hips then. Then let's just work from the bottom up. Check that we're not carrying any tension there. Check your knees aren't locked. Check that you're not doing anything strange at pelvis level, that you're not sort of slumped. If it's tilted too far forward, you might find yourself hunched over. Tilted too far back, that's no good either. Let's get rid of any tension we might be carrying in the shoulders. Give the arms a bit of a shake out. Roll your shoulders back just so that they're hanging nice and loosely and nicely relaxed by your side, your arms are. Great. Think of the neck as an extension of the spine, because that's exactly what it is, so it should all just be nicely aligned there. For me, that often means I want my chin slightly further down than I would naturally put it, but it's different for everybody. Great. I'm going to ask you all to take individual responsibility as we go through the rehearsal this evening. Just keep a check on what your posture's like, on how you're standing, on what you're doing physically. We've all got bad habits. For me, the number of rehearsals I've found myself absent-mindedly standing with my feet crossed doesn't help. So let's just keep checking yourself as we go through this evening, checking that everything's nicely aligned and you're in a sensible position for singing. Great. So, I said I was going to talk about some low breathing. For some of you this might be very familiar, for others it might be new to you. So just while I'm talking to you, if you put a thumb on your tummy button and just feel, whilst I'm talking to you, observe what your body's doing naturally in terms of breathing. I like to think of the torso as a balloon. So when you put air into a balloon, it gets bigger. As we inhale, as we exhale, it's going to get smaller. Now, I think we're all very used to thinking about the lungs expanding, perhaps at this level. When you breathe in, you know that you go out there, but you also fill up downwards as well. So I want you to feel that your tummy is moving lots too, just to support this sound. So thinking about that then, can we breathe in to a count of 2, and then I'd like you to exhale to maybe a count of 8 to a shh sound. What I'm hoping that you'll feel is that your tummy button travels towards your spine as you exhale. So into 2. 1, 2. Shh. Great. Feel what your body does as you breathe in at the end of that exercise as well. If the lower breathing is new to you, that's when your body actually needs to take in air, that's when that will really jump into action. Great. Let's do the same to a long s. See if you can keep it going for 10 this time. Into 2. Great. If these are too long, if they're not achievable, don't worry. Don't do anything that's uncomfortable. But let's have one more, maybe to 12, on a long into 2. Really long one. Well done. Great. Keeping that hand there, let's have... Great. You might want to have a hand on your chest as well, actually. Feel some resonance there. Then let's have... Great. Lovely. If you get the letters wrong, doesn't matter, it's the movement and the support we're interested in here. Great. So we're really getting used to engaging the body to support this sound. Fantastic. Let's start with some pitch, shall we? Can we have... And rather than it just being a couple of notes, I want you to really think about the slide between the two. I'm not for a second suggesting sliding around when we're singing the Messiah. I'm sure that's not what Simon would want. It's also not what I would want. But just for now, just to really connect everything, let's just have a nice slide. Great. Can we put all three of those together now? So have a hand back on the tummy. And again, if this lower breathing is new to you, then really feel what happens when you take the breath in at the end of this longer exercise. So all three together will be... Great, so the release of that breath at the end is a really important part of this exercise. Let's move up and change to a zzz. Lovely, well done. I should have said at the start, if I do anything that's uncomfortable, anything that's too high or too low for you, don't worry. I'm trying to cater for all different voice parts this evening, so there's no shame at all in dropping out. Or, better still, if you want to try the exercise, but in a key of your own, that's absolutely fine. So just to make sure we've done something for everyone, we'll do some higher stuff now. Again, if it's too high, just stop, that's absolutely fine. I'd like to try some sirening, so an NG, as in the end of the word sing. Great, as we're getting up higher in the voice, make sure you've got a bit of space here. If you try and do it with your mouth nearly shut, it just won't be as good. So your jaw is nice and free. Lovely. We've probably got some sopranos and tenors that want to go higher. I'll be honest, I don't. So choose your own pitch at this point. Just your own pitch. Great. So you can go as high as you want to up there. Lovely. Let's have. Try a rolled R at the start. If you can't, a lip trill will do just the same thing. Great. Some low stuff as well. I promise something for everyone. So. If you're not comfortable down there, you don't need to do it. If you can get down there, but it's not the most comfortable place to be, don't try and force anything out that's louder than is comfortable for you, but be nice and gentle. Lovely, well done. Let's finish off by just getting back to a more appropriate range for all of us, shall we? So, Great, I've just looked at my watch. I think it's definitely time we got going. Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Martha. That was, I think, a great warm-up. And for those of you who joined us last night for the Beethoven and had Peter's warm-up, I think it's wonderful getting different singers' perspectives on various aspects of the voice. So, yeah. I hope you enjoyed that. Okay, so one of the things Martha talked about was the body and getting the body connected with singing. It's not just the sound that we make that we need to think about when we think about the body. And it's also the rhythm and the style that is very much affected by how we use our bodies, and particularly with Baroque music. If you turn to page 11 in the Watkins Shaw, this is "And the Glory of the Lord" we're going to sing. And the point I'm trying to make is that if you are very stiff and stuck in the ground, you know, and you're just, everything's very weighty, we're going to get something that sounds like this. 1, 2, yeah, thank you very much. Point made, you know, and there are recordings out there where that is the case. But, you know, really, it should feel much more lifted. So if you can, when you're singing this, stand on your toes. So this is 2 bars. So we get more like... Okay? Much more lift to it. Let's sing through it, and then we'll ask our singers for their best secrets, best kept secrets that they use when singing this movement. So it's slightly slower there. 1, 2. On your toes. Like a very elegant, courtly dance.
all flesh
shall see it together. The glory of the Lord, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed. And all flesh shall see it together. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed. For the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. For the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. For the mouth of the Lord, the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it.
Lovely. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed listening to it. Okay, let's have a look at that and jump in with any, tricks of the trade, any of you that would like to mention anything or ways that you think about this or experiences you've had. So I try to be polite and look at them, but at the same time be conscious of the fact that Mike is here.
It just needs to feel dance-like and graceful, doesn't it? I think what you said about being light is absolutely right. Just not getting too stuck, particularly as, well, speaking as an alto, the vocal parts in this score are often written fairly low, and it can be quite tempting to try and make more noise there than is potentially safe or healthy. And actually, you don't need to. Just be quite light with it. And if you lose the dance-like gracefulness, then you're losing the character of it. So don't try and push anything, I think, is what I think of this one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, keep a smile on your face in this. It's so. I mean, as it says, it's so glorious. Just a nice big smile, and it makes it all so much lighter. And you can just sort of, you can glide through these lines so much easier.
It's brilliant, isn't it, the way he starts with one phrase and lets everyone have a little bit here and there, and then brings everyone together, and then gives everyone each their own line. It's like for me, it's the beginning of the Messiah, this piece, because we have, you have the overture, and then you have the tenor, recitative and aria, and then you get this moment where the chorus suddenly rises. And always in a choral society, it's there's this noise of the chorus rising, and then you have this amazing chorus, which is really a joy to sing. It's not as difficult as a lot of the other choruses. It's actually quite a straightforward one to sing, I think, in a lot of ways. And you get little snippets of lines. Everyone gets to sing their own little bits. Then we come together, and then move apart and come together. And it's a really nice way to start an evening like this when you have the Messiah, because it's a long evening, and I think it brings things into a certain sphere of joyousness which you want for this piece.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to add a couple of things. Sorry, Emma, was there anything you wanted to add?
I was just going to continue from what Martha said about keeping it light and bouncy. And when, for example, Sopranos, top of page 14, when you're on a sort of the same note, you don't have to bash it out. It doesn't have to be louder than everyone else. You can kind of come away from the notes a little bit and let the interesting parts underneath come through.
Well, actually, that brings me to a good point, and maybe let's jump around a little bit to the things that I wanted to look at. So when you have sustained notes, there's an opportunity there to be musical, to give those long notes purpose. Rather, as Emma's saying, you just don't hold it out as one flat as a pancake note, but there's an opportunity to have a slight growth in the note, or it could get quieter in the middle, but to shape it and agree upon a shape, I think is a really important thing to keep the long notes happening. Having purpose. But the other thing, of course, that you rise up to that A. And when I'm working with a choir, I always say to the sopranos that we don't need you to get louder as you get to that. You can float over the top. What bar number is that?
110.
Yeah, 110.
Bar 110. Yes. And the glory of the Lord. It's fine if it comes away to go to that note. I say it, I'm not a singer. but the point is, it's about arriving at a note and it being glorious, not loud. You don't have to be loud to be glorious, anyway. So let's go, please. And the glory of the Lord, which is page 15 in the Watkins Shaw. bar 76. We're going to start from there. And there's a few things I want to look at there. So, altos, you have see it together. Make sure that when you have a rhythm that's over one note, that it doesn't become flat in the rhythm. So, flesh shall see it together. We can still keep that sense of dance that Martha was talking about, even if you're singing on the same note. And the same goes for the sopranos when you have that in the next few bars on the F. And then when we get to that bar 110, if I could ask you just to float your way up to that A, and I will smile at Emma as I do with my choirs at Dartington. They always know it's a high note at Dartington because I smile more. And was there something else I was going to... Oh, let's also be careful about phrase lengths when it comes to the text. Otherwise, it can become a bit boring. If everything is dee, da dum, bum, 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 bum. So every single downbeat ends up having the same accent. So, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. That's a very boring way to be presenting that. We could be saying, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. You know, we could shape it through to make sure that we're giving the emphasis on the words that should have emphasis, and as a result, making our pattern just that little bit more interesting. Okay, let's try all of those things from, I forgot what bar number I said now, 76, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Can we just take it more bars? Yeah, or just go a couple of bars into that? Or no, let's start on that. Here's your starting notes again. 1, 2, 3, 1.
And the glory of the Lord, and all flesh shall see it together.
The mouth of the
Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. The glory of the Lord, and shall come of the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, for the flesh shall see it together. For the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. For the mouth of the Lord, the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it.
It's a very odd sensation having everybody behind me. Maybe I could do sideways. As they used to do until fairly recently, I believe, the German tradition for conductors into the 20th century was that it was rude to turn your back on the audience. So there was a tradition for German conductors that they did always conduct sideways so that they would never fully have their backs to the audience. Anyway, sorry if I'm being rude, but you're going to get my back this evening. Okay, let's move on. Well, what my plan is, we'll sing through each movement, have a little look at details, and then for the last 15 minutes or so of this workshop, we'll sing through everything that we cover tonight, because I do want to make sure you get to sing as much as possible tonight. So this should be page 35 in the Watkins Shaw. I'm sorry, I don't know the page numbers in the Prout. It's and he shall purify. Any words of wisdom before we go into this one from my...
Good luck.
Good luck. Yeah.
This is a hard one.
I said words of wisdom, not words of caution.
I think for me, the trick is knowing exactly where those runs go.
Yeah.
So you're not reading them. So
Yeah.
what that involves is slow practice. So
Yeah.
you can have your head up and that your muscle memory is working, and that if you're with your head in your score, you're going to get behind and it's going to get confusing. There's such long phrases. So it's just about having practiced it slowly and knowing where you're aiming.
I think that's a very good point. I think what I'll do, we'll sing through this now. Have you best bash at it, for those of you who haven't sung it for a while. And then one of the things we'll look at for this movement is suggestions on what Martha was just talking about, which is understanding the shape of the run, the direction of the run, and how to practice that slowly. I think that would be a really good thing to get out of this one. But let's sing it. So if you could give us a D and a G for the Sopranos.
And he shall purify, and he shall purify the sons of
And he shall purify, and he shall purify the sons of Levi.
And he shall purify the sons.
And he shall
And he shall purify, and he shall purify the sons of Levi. The sons of Levi, that they may offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness, in righteousness.
and he shall purify,
Shall purify the sons of Levi.
and he
Shall purify, and he shall purify, and he shall purify the sons of Levi, the sons of Levi.
and he shall purify,
Shall purify,
and he shall purify,
and he shall purify the sons of Levi. Sons of Levi. And he shall purify the sons of Levi, that we may offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness, in righteousness.
Oh, tingly, goosebumps for all the right reasons. Excellent. I have to say, though, much as wonderful as those runs are, it's often those syncopated sections that the altos in particular have, where they're descending, those tied crotchets and those minims that always, just wonderful, the combination of those two things. Okay, let's talk about ways of learning those runs.
I think it's helpful sometimes to break it up into smaller patterns. So, and he shall purify, da 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 da. So maybe think of a pattern that you can reach out to.
So each pattern
Yeah.
has a point within it. Da 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 da. We're moving to that. We're moving through to that F, and
Yeah.
then da 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 through to the E, and yeah.
And instead of it just seeming like one long, massive run of notes that seems insurmountable,
Yes.
break it up into smaller patterns.
So first, let's find the patterns, and then put those together. Is the first suggestion.
That's also a nice thing to do in terms of giving it lots of musical shape. It means you're not thinking just of sets of 4 semiquavers. If it's not always the strong beats that you're heading for, it's just more interesting to listen to and more fun to sing.
And if a conductor allows you a decent speed that allows you to be musical, then you can put in not too fast and not too slow. Anything for the gentleman?
Well, I've always wondered how sopranos are able to do this thing where they sing very high and get it in a very small little place in their voice, and it's like dooby-dooby-dooby-dooby-dooby-dooby, which is not really in the bass repertoire so much.
It's turned into a Swingles version.
But I think, somebody once told me to practice runs by doing dooby-dooby-dooby, and that's to get it maybe into a dooby-dooby-dooby-dooby-dooby-dooby-dooby, which you can do in a quite a quick speed.
Yeah.
Because I think what you don't want is a lot of bulk in the sound when you're doing these runs. He would have designed all these runs to be sung in one breath, probably, which is very hard for all of us.
Yeah.
But if you can manage it in one breath, then you're probably doing something correct. And just keeping that low support that Martha was talking about, and not letting it get to sort of ha 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 up there. But you could do that forever, couldn't you? That sort of sound.
Yeah.
And that's all you need in this piece. It's very lightly scored. So just a little bit of sort of keeping the sound going, I suppose.
Actually, Jeremy and I were talking about beforehand that really the Messiah, as far as orchestration concerned, is the voices and the bass line.
Mm-hmm.
You could, in many places, take out the middle bits, and it would, it is a walking bass with wonderful vocal parts over the top. Jeremy, anything to add to that?
I think pretty much.
Fair enough. I think, 8 o'clock. Let's keep moving on, because we'll come back and sing that again. Nobody's questioned a particular aspect of that, but I think that's all really wonderful points. And I think that, again, approaching these long runs in a way that you can find nice patterns to make them easier to learn. And also, we didn't talk about if the pattern changes. So if you have broken it down, occasionally there will be a point, because of the way that the harmonies are going, that maybe it doesn't go down by step but drops a third or something. You'll spot those in the process of breaking up the longer phrase into a pattern. Okay. By the way, when I look at my phone, it's not that I'm being rude and texting my wife. Oh, no, I am, actually. Eve is at the other end. If any chat questions come in that she wants me to address, she is sending me those messages. So that's why I'm looking at my phone every so often. Number 9, O Thou That Tellest, on page 41. Well, it's not 41 for where you come in, is it? It's 46, page 46, which is letter H in that. Now, I always find one of the challenges I have as a conductor in this is keeping the choir, stopping the choir from slowing down in this one. I find certainly second beats can always get a little bit behind. Now, is that my conducting, or what's going on that makes... what's going on there? Why does it feel... Do people tend to slow down in this one? Do you have any...
That's probably just the way slightly it's written, with the sort of length on the first note. Oh, thou, that is everything that's on the first beat. I think you actually need to think much longer phrases in this. Just sitting on that, just sort of emphasising on that first beat of each bar, I think tends to, you get lazy on it when you sit too long.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thou, that.
Yeah, you feel like you're moving all the way through.
It's
that.
The danger with the 6/8,
yeah,
isn't it? Of the quaver after the crotchet coming late.
Yeah.
Dee da dee da. So imagine you're on your pony here. It's nice. Again, we're not dancing now. Now we're riding ponies. Let's try it. Come on. Here's an A to a D for 1, 2.
O thou that tellest the tidings to Zion, good tidings to Jerusalem. Arise, arise, say unto the cities of Judah, behold your God, behold the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. O thou that tellest good tidings to Zion, say unto the cities of Judah, behold, behold the glory of the Lord, the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee.
Lovely. Sorry to cut you off there, Ian. Not a very long chorus, but there is so much we can do in this one musically. It's such a beautiful one. Now, I would like us to think about the hierarchy of accents Okay, so what I mean by that is, first of all, we tend to have a hierarchy in beats, in that, in this case, we've got the downbeat, which is we naturally feel as being heavier than the second beat. Dum dee dum da dum ba dum da da. So there's that type of emphasis. But then we have to take that context within the phrase, because actually, if we do that and don't think about that in relationship to the words, we may end up putting an emphasis on a part of a word or a word that is in the wrong place. So, for example, I think obviously thou is important, but how important is good tidings? And that only comes on a quaver there. Oh, thou that tellest good tidings to Zion. So actually, we maybe need to make sure that we pick up that good as we go through there. To Zion, good tidings to, yeah. So thinking about where that comes as well. So that's one thing to look at. The next thing is those arises. Talk to us about those, please, if you wouldn't mind, because there's a lot of little notes to get in there. And the way I always think about those is they're like this wonderful cascading golden bell sound. You know, arise, behold. They need to have that brightness to them, which is why the Sopranos and the altos have it.
I mean, it's an effect, so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if the notes aren't perfect.
Don't tell them
it's
that.
But it doesn't, because it's much more important that it's in time and
Yes.
that it has the effect. And if you're worried about trying to get every little note out, you'll be behind, and then it loses the joy.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
I think the effect is that, I mean, it's all about good news, and there's this kind of bubbling current of excitement underneath, isn't there? And the best way to get them as accurate as possible is to keep everything really nice and light. There's a theme this evening, isn't there?
Yeah.
But keeping it all really nice and light will help get through those really quick notes more accurately.
And also, of course, we're in the Christmas portion of Messiah. So the first five sections of Messiah, you know, they are the prophecy, the Annunciation, and the Nativity. So it's all good news at this point. We haven't yet got into the Passion or any of those aspects. So I think, not surprising, there is a lightness to these.
It is interesting that Handel doesn't. All the same word.
Definitely spinning.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sorry. There's a good joke about that. No. He doesn't give those little figures to the bass. He only gives us the upper three parts. So
Yeah.
he must have known something about basses.
Well, wasn't one of his basses his favourite cook too?
Yeah, probably.
Yes. So anyway, we'll practice that, I think. The other thing I want to say is breathing. To get into that is the last thing we haven't talked about. Like snatching a breath too late is going to only cause tension. You need to breathe in time, don't you? So are you breathing? I mean, you don't think about it, do you? It's second nature. But is it sort of on the rise? You're taking as much time in that space, or
Quick breath.
Probably on the crotchet.
Yeah, I think
on the crotchet? So it's rhythmically on the beat. Arise. Yeah. Okay, let's not do all of that again, because I think we can cover those first 2 points by singing through to bar 16. So we'll start that one. So we're thinking, O thou that tellest good tidings to Zion, good tidings. So we're thinking about, and the nice thing about being by yourself is that you don't need to worry about what other people do. Just think about the text and how that can work with rhythm without losing the lightness and the dance. Breathe on the second beat and think about tenors, altos, and sopranos, keeping that as light as possible and bell-like when we get to those arises. So here's your A and your D. 1, 2.
O thou that tellest good tidings to Zion, good tidings to Jerusalem. Say unto the cities of Judah, behold your God.
Good, very good. Any tips for people marking their pages? It was mentioned last night. Any tips on marking their pages? I presume that means what do you little markings that you use to remind yourself of things.
Well, whether you should do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I would suggest that the first thing about marking that I would suggest, and I've said this many times to the choirs I've worked with, if you look at a professional score, it's got lots of markings in it. Yeah. You don't want to forget something you've been asked to do the next time you do it. Or you want to make sure that if you make a mistake and nobody's noticed it, that you don't make it again and it's noticed. And also, you know, you might have a little idea or something that you want to remember. So do mark up your parts. It can be very frustrating from the conductor's point of view if people don't mark their parts. And it doesn't really matter. You can come up with your own markings. I mean, usually for a breath, we use a little V or we might use a little comma symbol, but it doesn't really matter what you mark in there. Just do mark in your breaths and notes. And if we come up with any other marking ideas that we have... Oh, another thing is, use arrows. If you're being told that particular note is flat, put a little arrow or something to say, bring that note up, so that you have a reminder as you're going towards that you're going to have to bring that up. And sometimes that pitch may be that it's a lack of support, but it also might be that the note that you're singing has changed its position in the chord. So you might be holding a C, but that C maybe has gone from being the repetition of the tonic note to actually being the third in the chord, but you're still sustaining it, which will mean that you have to subtly change the pitch of that note in that position. And if anything like that comes up tonight, maybe we'll address that.
My favourite marking in university choir was an eyebrow with a line through it, which I never really understood, but I think it means basically go through and don't go through, if that makes any sense.
Or it means he does this sometimes and he does this.
Well, it's curious, but I think it's something like, say, unto the cities of Judah, behold. So you are kind of stopping, but also going through.
So you're breathing.
It's quite useful marking, maybe. Yes. So not a tick for a breath and not a going through, but something in between. So eyebrow with a line through.
Articulation, isn't it, as opposed to a breath.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So as an instrumentalist, I would mark that as a phrase mark over, but with a breath. No, that
kind of brings me on to the point I was going to make, that there's just no right or wrong, actually, with this.
Yeah.
You can do what you want. Lots of my scores are absolutely covered in scribble that if I were to give them to a colleague, they wouldn't know what the hell it meant, a lot of it, but it means something to me.
Yeah.
So you can, anything that's going to help, write it down.
So I have a little thing, shorthand, which is if I want to slow something down, I do a backwards facing squiggly line with an arrow pointing that way. And if something's going to speed up in a bit of rubato, I do it the other way, squiggly line with an arrow that way. And that's my little way of just showing somewhere, rather than writing rit or accelerando, if I want a subtle little area there. So, I mean, fascinating. We can go on all sorts of markings, but you want to sing. Just to show how we can play around in a very appropriate way with markings, because there are very few. One of the interesting things, and I think what's interesting about Jonathan is picking up speeds. We don't have metronome markings. We don't have the same usage of Italian terms that we learnt, which came out of the 19th and 20th century. So andante at a walking pace is a 19th and 20th century idea. Andante for a Baroque and classical composer can be as fast as allegro, and allegro can be as slow as andante. So we have to look at other things for finding appropriate tempos. So finding those dance rhythms, or as Jonathan was suggesting, if you know that it's quite likely that these runs were written to be sung in one breath, assuming that you're a trained professional singer, that is a good yardstick to work out what the tempo should be if you can sing that comfortably in one go. But other than that, we have very little to go on other than our own imaginations, and we should use those imaginations. So something I wanted to look at, let's look at the very last, from pick up to bar 131 on page 48 in the Novello score. This is after K. It's the very last phrase. The glory of the Lord, we'll make that a nice strong mezzo forte sound there. And then we come down of the Lord. But then I'm going to ask Martha to lead the altos just to come up slightly, but then immediately diminuendo. Okay? So then we get the final, the glory of the Lord is going to be a lovely pianissimo. And then we're going to rise, is risen upon thee. And we're going to crescendo into that final cadence. And remember, cadences we always generally, in Baroque music, we want to come away on. Upon thee, not upon thee. Nothing that sort of heavy at the end. Let's run into that by going from K, O thou there, so the last notes of the bar of 47, page 47. So we'll sing into this, okay? And then think about those dynamics at the end. Here we go. 1 and.
O thou that tellest good tidings to Zion, say unto the cities of Judah.
Jingle those bells.
Behold,
Breath.
behold,
Strong.
the glory of the
Echo.
Lord. Of the Lord.
Now altos.
The glory of the Lord is risen upon thee.
Lovely. See? Just use your imagination and there's so much in this glorious music that we can be imaginative about. Okay. Any other thoughts on that one? Or let's move on, shall we? We're having fun, but I do... let's see how far we can get. There's no hurry on any of this. What's the next one? Glory to God. Page 68, yes? No. 55. So we haven't done for unto us. Front to us.
You know, Simon, where I said that most of these runs are written for one breath. Just put a little proclaimer in there. Sort of, we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
I will definitely be reading this one.
Yeah, there you go. Let's sing this, and then we can talk. There's all sorts of things we need to think about with dotted rhythms and words, and again we can look at the ways in which we can be imaginative in this. Big smile, sopranos.
For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, unto us a son is given.
For unto us a child is born,
Unto us a child is born,
unto us a son is given, unto us a son is given.
For unto us a child is born,
For unto us a child is born.
unto us a son is given, unto us
A son is given.
a son is given,
And the government shall be upon his shoulders.
And the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace.
Unto us a child is born,
Unto us a child is born.
unto us a son is given, unto us a child is born,
Unto us a son is given,
and the government shall be upon his shoulders.
and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace.
Unto us a child is born.
Unto us a child is born,
Unto us a child is born,
unto us a child is born,
unto us a son is given,
A son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders.
the government shall be upon his shoulders.
and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Unto us a child is born, unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, unto us a son is given, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace.
Thank you very much, Ian. Lovely. Oh, that's such a great chorus, that one. Okay. I loved the competition that was going on behind me. But I would like to talk about those runs in two ways. First of all, as you set the bar there, talk about breath control if you are planning to try something like that. Because obviously you don't just set into that and hope that you're going to get through it. Well, there's always an element of that. You don't, I mean, fair enough. I mean, I think any athlete would suggest the same thing. You know, I'm always prepared to fall over if I'm going to run this race.
Falling over in this case simply means snatching a breath somewhere, which is perfectly normal. It may be easier with a chorus because there's plenty of people doing it one to a part. You're a little more exposed to doing that. So I think if you're a group of 20, 30, 50 basses, then breathe where you like, really. But I think if you go off with the intent to go as far as you possibly can, that might be also a good idea. And then just, there's always a point where I think, oh gosh, I'm probably going to run out of breath. Or maybe not, actually. And then there's a kind of mindset. But I just try and keep it going sort of, I don't know, sort of treading water almost a little bit. So I'm not using much air, really. Right. There's a constant airflow, but it's not sort of going out at a great rate, if that makes sense.
So, speaking as a trombone player,
yes.
If I was thinking about that, I love the Peter Pears idea of the barrel filled with water, and you're always trying to keep it half full. Yeah. So when we're trying to sustain a long note, because that's often what trombone players have to do, is sustain something for a long time. Yeah. I would be thinking about controlling the breath with the diaphragm all the way through that. Is that the same process that you're going
definitely. Yeah. It's using those muscles to just to put that air through your vocal cords, but in a very controlled way, where there's sort of one flow of air, but it's not sort of like a leaky balloon. Yeah. Like that. Yeah. It's a sort of constant stream, like the exercises Martha was doing, that sort of exercise.
It actually ties into the exercise Martha was doing, where she had the quick ones, which were pushing them out, but in this case, you're
constant pressure here. Yeah. You know, constant support. Yeah. But if you can do it to a lip trill, that's quite a good practice. That kind of thing. You can see you go quite a long ways with that. Yeah. And then just keep going. Good luck.
So the next thing is to talk about, if you are going to take breaths, how to take the breaths. So better, I mean, I always ask the choir not to snatch the breath, but actually take out a rhythmic portion and then come in a point. So you're actually taking out, yes, technically, it might only take you a semiquaver or a quaver to get your breath, but are you going to come in late as a result of that? So,
I mean, when it's this fast, you just have to take a note or two out, and that's okay, particularly as
four. It really is.
Well, yeah, I mean, but you know, mostly, like you say, you're going to have multiple people on the part with you, so as long as you make sure you're not breathing at the same time as your neighbours, then those notes will be covered by somebody. Yeah. So it's totally fine.
On which note, I think it's a great thing to for the sake of personal practice and pride, trying to get through the whole thing in your living room. That's great. When it comes to concert day, people would much rather have a good sound from the whole section. So one or two of you might need to be the people that think, oh, actually, I'm going to breathe really early on in that phrase, so we haven't got a hole in it where everybody does when they haven't quite made it through to the end. And also, to go back to what Jeremy was saying earlier on, it's really easy to get bogged down in stuff that's quite technically difficult and have a very serious face on you. I am going to get through this, but actually smile and enjoy it. It's a really happy chorus, and don't get stressed by it.
Good. Sorry, I was just checking to see if there's any questions on that. The other thing is, we were talking about markings. please, 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 when you're working out your staggered breathing, mark them in. Staggered breathing must be something we decide upon as a section, and you stick to it. And you stick to it right the way through to the concert. The problem is you might decide on the staggered breathing at the beginning of the term, and then you get to the concert and you've actually been singing for 3 months, and you're actually able to go for longer than you did then. Don't! We need to practice that breathing so that you come in rhythmically, and so that that's where things will fall to pieces if somebody doesn't go by the markings that have been decided upon early on. Excellent. The next thing I want to talk about from a rhythmic point of view, and the government shall be upon his shore, keeping that moving forward, yes? I would practice that rhythmically by thinking, and go meant be on. So you go for the beats and you practice that, and then you practice, or you could even practice, and the government shall be upon his shore. So you practice it that way, making sure that every beat is there, and then bum, ba-dum, 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 you put the dotted rhythm in to make sure that it's moving forward. Because this is somewhere that does tend to slow down, and if it does, it just takes a bit of the life out of the movement. Any other suggestions on that bit? Let's just try that, please. From top of page 57, from the tenor entrance there. So this is C, or bar 26 on page 57. So, la, 3, 4, 1.
And the government shall be upon his shore. And the government shall be upon his shore. And the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called.
Excellent. So, the next thing is, it's not wonderful counselor, as you heard so beautifully sung before. We need to have as much vowel as possible in there without it then getting dum ba dum. So we still got the same energy that we had before, but wonderful. Make sure there's lots and lots of vowel. Can we let's take it from bar 30, bottom of page 57, and we'll go into that, please, and make those dotted quavers nice and long. Okay, 3 and 1.
And the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace.
Okay, so in this case, I would ask, as we just did, lots of ways you could do this at the end of the phrase. You could shorten that piece to a quaver so that everybody comes off at the same time, because the alto is going to have to take a breath before going on into unto. But actually, I like it if the soprano, tenor, and the bass continue on to the fourth beat, and the altos just take a breath there into unto us. But just a personal opinion on that one. Lovely bit there, isn't there, for the altos, Martha? We're talking about shaping a long note on the next page.
Yeah. It's just important not to get stuck, I think. Yeah, to keep the breath flow going consistently. I often end up putting a bit of a crescendo in there, but I think that's just about me keeping the note alive. It's not something I'd suggest a whole section to do necessarily, but play around with anything that will keep it moving, keep the breath moving.
I totally agree, and I think you can either mirror the shape that the bass line has, or you could go against it. I mean, I've done that before, and I think it's rather nice. If the altos have a slight diminuendo into the middle of that, and then crescendo through. Now, the thing is, if I ask you to do that, of course, even more breath control, because the danger is you're going to let it out with the diminuendo, which you shouldn't. Can we just try that? And placing a diminuendo underneath the and the government there. Yeah? So let's go from bar 43, where the alto line, and the government, and 1.
And the government shall be upon his shore.
And the government shall be upon his shoulder.
Anyway.
And his name.
Lovely. So again, feel free to be imaginative about all of this.
If you feel you're getting stuck, actually, as an alto, if you want to practice that line, if you end up singing and thinking about each crotchet to keep it moving, and then taking that articulation out, you might find it helps a little bit.
So, and what's really great about that exercise is it's manifesting audibly your internal rhythm. You know, we've got the external rhythm, the rhythm we hear, da-da-dum-bum-bum, but we also need to always have internal rhythm going on, which actually is the unheard structure that's holding this together. So we're all thinking internally, we might be planning to sing something and we're thinking quavers or we're thinking crotchets or what have you. And that's a great way of, and then you replace that, hopefully, with not singing it out, but still feeling that rhythm going through it. Anything else on this course? Okay.
I was only just going to say one thing about going back to the breathing again, sorry, the long phrases, is that sometimes it's quite possible to sort of over-breathe. You end up filling up so full of air that you end up just sort of locking up. You sort of breathe so it feels comfortable, and then when you reach the sort of, you feel like you're full, don't then continue and just really top up, because it all ends up in your chest and you end up really tight and constricted, and then you'll get absolutely nowhere in the phrase. So definitely it's important to not over-breathe.
Excellent. Just a quick note from our viewers. Remember, we need to speak out to them just to make sure that they get heard. So they're all being very polite and speaking to me, but we'll project more for those of you who are saying that sometimes you can't hear everything that's being said. And they're all saying great things, so I want you to hear it. Okay, now we should be getting on to page 68, yes? Glory to God. Good, we're doing well. So this is another good example of glory to God in the is, we know where we're going with that. The rhythm is taking us through to that third bar. But what do we do with highest? And I think this sort of fits in again to what Martha was just saying there, is we've got to have a sense of the rhythm. So be thinking, that's what I'm thinking of with those long notes, is what the violins are playing there and how they're rising. Could you play us that bar, please? The third bar. Yeah. So it's running and so you could put in a little bit of a diminuendo for the first beat. Ha, yes, and you sort of move forward in that way. Let's try that. Let's just sing this one. 2, 3, and glory to God in the highest. Sorry, I should have said before, I like to do this piano. Okay. So the piece, because in your score you'll see it's got an F in square brackets, meaning it's an editorial marking that may have come from one of the many editions that there were of Messiah, which we'll talk about in another workshop. We'll talk about various versions and all that sort of thing. But yes, I would like to do the Peace on Earths as piano and the Glory to Gods as good fortes. Again, from the top, please. 2, 3, and glory to God in the highest. Peace.
And peace on earth.
And
Glory to God, glory to God, glory to God in the highest.
Thank you very much, Ian. I will let you, when we sing through, I will let you have all the playouts because they're so lovely.
The best bit.
Okay. So I got one request in this as far as words is concerned, that we sing goodwill. Yes, it's goodwill toward men. It's not Will, who happen to be good, heading towards a whole bunch of men. It's not goodwill. Goodwill. So throughout, if we can make sure that we get the word goodwill. Yes? Now, any other thoughts on this one?
I think it's very easy to fall into a trap at the very start of this one. It's very easy to forget that the consonant L has a pitch, and so often you hear choirs kind of going, like sliding up to it on the L, but actually, making sure that you're pitching the consonant on the note that the vowel's going to be on will set it up well.
Yes. And those of you who were part of last night's workshop on the Beethoven will know you'll make Peter Foggett very happy if you... he picked up on that one too, so excellent. We're going to keep underlining the L thing, I think, through all these courses. Any other... No? I think... Let's practice the goodwills. So... Goodwill toward men. So I think sometimes that whole phrase, that I often hear, even in really good recordings, that phrase can often get very broken up in a very sort of instrumental way. So you get da, 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 as opposed to hearing goodwill toward men. And you lose that sense of the words, if I'm making myself clear there. If we could go, please, from B at the bottom of 69 and just try... let's just take the tenors as basis. 2, 3, and
Goodwill toward men,
Toward man.
goodwill toward men, goodwill toward men.
fabulous. Let's do the same thing with the sopranos and the altos. Starting with the altos, second of B, bar 19. 2, 3, and
Goodwill toward men, toward men, goodwill toward men, toward men, goodwill toward men.
and everybody, please. So thinking about goodwill toward men. Okay. 3, and
Goodwill toward men.
lovely. Okay, we're at 8:45, and I would like, we didn't quite get through to his yoke is easy, but that's okay. We'll start with his yoke is easy and make our burthens light next week. But before we go and sing through all that we've done tonight, I'll just give you a couple of seconds. There's a bit of a delay, so we'll need to wait about 15 seconds or so before we get your responses. But if you have any questions, now would be a great time to ask them, and then we'll sing through the choruses that we've done so far this evening. Any thoughts on that one, or any thoughts in general about these things whilst we're waiting for questions?
We haven't talked about the text very much. I think, especially when you're all singing the same words together, really bring up text. So the first chorus we did, and the glory, it's very homophonic on that first page. Really get the gluz out and the luz out and the does. Really bring those across. Makes more of an impact.
I think something next week we could have a look at is, this is a chorus often where I will work with the choir and have them sing the vowels only. Get the rhythm in the vowels, and then, because whilst absolutely I 110% agree with Emma on that, the danger is, isn't it, that you'll end up
Slow you down.
or you'll squash the vowels, particularly things like glor. So it's a good one to practice on vowels only, and then adding in that clarification with the consonants. Okay, no questions. Excellent, good. As I say, if anything, you get off tonight and you think, oh, I meant to ask that, send us a message on the Facebook page, on the in the Facebook group, and then we can address that next week. We'd love to get your comments and your thoughts and your questions. But for now, let's finish our first workshop by singing from the top of the choruses that we did tonight. So, And the Glory on page 11 in the Watkins Shaw. Okay.
The glory of the Lord,
And the glory of the Lord
shall be revealed.
shall be revealed.
And the glory
Shall be revealed.
shall be revealed,
And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed.
and all flesh shall see it together.
and all flesh shall see it together.
For the
And all
mouth
flesh shall
of the
see it
Lord has
together.
and all flesh shall see it together.
And all flesh
And all flesh
And
shall
all
see
flesh
it
shall see it
together.
together.
The mouth
All flesh
of
shall
the
see it
Lord has
together.
and the glory of the Lord,
And all flesh
and
shall
all
see
flesh shall see it together.
And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed.
And all flesh
And all
And
flesh
all flesh
shall see it together.
the glory of the Lord.
The glory of the Lord shall be revealed.
And all flesh
And all flesh
And all flesh shall see it together. And the glory of the Lord
shall be
shall be
revealed. And all flesh shall see it together.
For the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it.
For the mouth
For the mouth of the Lord, the mouth of the Lord has spoken it.
Lovely. I could feel you were all up on your toes on that one. Page 35. And he shall purify. Starting notes just for
And he shall purify, and he shall purify the sons of
And he shall purify, and he shall purify the sons of Levi.
and he shall purify the sun.
And he shall
And he shall purify, and he shall purify, and he shall purify the sons of Levi, that they may offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness, in righteousness.
was a lovely offering. Thank you very much. 41. Oh, 46, sorry. How about we, could you give us a glory of the Lord, the bottom of page 45? Just a little run into that.
Oh, yeah.
One, and...
The glory of the Lord is risen upon thee, thou that tellest good
Thou that tellest good tidings, that tidings, good tidings, O Jerusalem.
tellest good tidings to Zion, to Zion.
Arise, arise, say unto the cities of Judah, behold your God, behold the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. O thou that tellest good tidings to Zion, say unto the cities of Judah, behold, behold the glory of the Lord, of the Lord.
The glory of
The glory of the Lord is risen upon thee.
$55. For unto us a child is born.
unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, unto us a son is given.
For unto us a child is born.
Unto us a child is born.
Unto us a son is given. Unto us a son is given.
For unto us a child is born.
Unto us a child is born.
Unto us a son is given. Unto us
a son is given.
a son is given.
And the government shall be upon his shoulders.
The government shall be upon his shoulders.
And the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace.
Unto us a child is born.
Unto us a child is born.
Unto us a son is given. Unto us a child is born.
Unto us a son is given.
And the government shall be upon his shoulders.
And the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace.
Unto us a child is born.
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 Unto us a son is given.
Unto us
government shall be upon his shoulder.
The government shall be upon his shoulder.
And the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Unto us a child is born, unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, unto us a son is given, unto us a son is given,
And the government shall be upon his shoulder.
the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace.
And finally this evening, Glory to God, on page 68 in the Watkins Shaw Novella edition. Glorious.
Glory to God, glory to God in the highest.
And peace on earth.
Glory to God, glory to God, glory to God in the highest.
And peace on earth. Goodwill toward men. Glory to God, glory to God in the highest. And peace on earth.
Goodwill toward men.
Goodwill, 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 toward men.
Thank you, Ian, for a fabulous ending to the evening. I'd just like to thank Emma and Martha and Jeremy and Ian and Jonathan for joining me here tonight. I hope you have enjoyed the evening as much as I think we have. I think it was quite evident we had some fun. It's lovely to be making music together, and we all feel for every choral society and choral group across the country that is not able to gather. We feel your pain. We really do. So I hope you've had fun tonight. Remember, in the details just below this video, you've got links to the core website so that you can download the music, find out about the other courses. Last night we started Beethoven Mass in C, but if you missed last night, the video from last night is available on YouTube. On Monday, we're starting a lovely program of 20th and 21st century choral music that includes the Vaughan Williams Fantasia on Christmas carols and Holst Christmas Day, as well as some contemporary Christmas carols and some things that I think will be new to perhaps everybody. The practice tracks for this are in core. Sign up, it's free, register for that. And what else? And please join our Facebook group and join the conversation with us. We want to support you. That's why we're here, to keep people singing. So stay safe, stay singing, and I look forward to seeing you at the next workshop. Good night.